Hey everyone, Robert here with the second update on the Concerto for One Ensemble. In this installment, I want to talk about the planning phase of the Concerto. Before any single note can be written down, before any kind of orchestration or anything can happen, um, every piece starts off with a planning phase of some sort. Some are shorter than others, and some take months. Luckily for me, my planning phase only took over the course of November, so took about a month of it. So, a very famous fictional character, Boromir, once said, "One does not simply walk into Mordor." I have the same philosophy when writing of a piece of this magnitude. One does not simply just write a concerto. There's plenty of work that goes into this piece before a single note can be written. So there's this initial kind of pre-planning phase that goes on with works. This is after the commission contract has been signed and you start having this open dialogue with the group that's premiering it about what kind of piece they want. And in this case, we knew ahead of time that it was going to be Concerto for One Ensemble. However, there was a lot of leeway that I was kind of given with it, so we had a lot of discussion back and forth about what they wanted to see in the piece and what they were hoping to achieve out of that piece. And a couple things came predominantly apparent for us. The first thing was that they really wanted the piece to be with my composition style. They did not want it to be based off, another style of work, or they weren't targeting a specific era of music. They really wanted to be what do I want the piece to sound like, and what does my sound sound like. I know that's a weird way to say it, but it's really what was said back and forth over the phone. The other thing was that they really, really wanted to feature the talent of the ensemble. The St. Louis Wind Symphony is an extremely talented and diverse group of musicians, all coming from various occupations. Some of them are retired, some of them are still out in the workforce, but all of them are just extremely, extremely talented musicians, and they love what they do. So once I had all this information down, I began planning the next step. And this becomes the really important part because, like I said earlier, no matter how big or how small a piece is, there must be a planning phase. Now, with this planning phase, I began planning in about November 2016. During that time, I had Nebraska Music Educators Association going on, and as you can see from the image I just pulled up, I was on the road and I was literally writing down scratch notes. I was just thinking of different ideas, thinking of where I wanted each movement to be. And the initial thing I thought of about was, okay, how many movements do we want this? Well, a typical concerto has 3 movements, fast, slow, and then really fast. So I settled on that, that's where that structure would start. However, as I continued playing this out, I ultimately decided that I also did not want the piece to be programmatic in any way, shape, or form. I wanted the performers to come up with their own interpretations of what the piece was about. This to me was a lot more powerful and a lot more meaningful than trying to force a story or an idea. Something that, if I try to force an idea on the listeners, I found this especially with larger pieces, and they don't quite agree with it, they start having this dysfunction, this disconnection of disbelief, where they might not associate with the idea or the title that you're coming up with that piece. Which is why I said, especially with such a large work, I decided that was not the best route for that the movements would be completely unnamed. But the other thing that I decided on was that I also wanted the entire thing to be played from start to finish, with no breaks in between. There's a lot of historical examples of works that have done this before. For example, Beethoven's String Quartet Number 14 has 7 movements in it, and they are played all the way through. And I think that piece is about 40 minutes in length when it's all said and done. So they are played non-stop. Another really more recent example of that is Stephen Bryan's Ecstatic Waters. It's about 13 to 15 minutes, I believe, and it is played in 5 movements non-stop from beginning to end. And for me, this serves a couple purposes. One, it allows me to make the piece feel like it's more unified. It sounds like it's a complete piece. There's still 3 distinct movements, and they each have their own ideas, but the pieces still connect in between. The other thing that it prevents is the really awkward clapping that sometimes happens with these multi-movement works. Ultimately, like especially with larger multi-movement works, if there's breaks in between, usually between like the first and second movement or second and third movement, there's a little bit of like awkward clapping while the percussion is getting set up. And it's not the audience's fault. It's just an education thing that like some conductors will say, please do not clap in between movements, or some will forget, and then the audience will forget that this is, hey, there's more movement, there's more of this work, and they'll start the clapping, and then they'll quickly go, oh no, stop, okay, we still have more of the piece. So that's the main reason why I decided that I wanted to have this piece from start to finish be 13 minutes of nonstop music. The next thing I decided was, what was my time frame for each movement? Now, this is kind of important because then it helps limit me in what I can write in each movement. So for the first movement, I decided, okay, 3 to 4 minutes. We'll do a shorter intro style movement, but it's still very concrete and can stand on its own. And then the second and third movements, 4 to 5 minutes each. And like I said, by targeting the time frame for each movement, I've essentially now laid down the initial framework for the piece. And this is important because I can now decide for each movement if the movement is too long. Okay, do I need to cut some ideas out of that? Or is it overdeveloped? Or is the movement way underdeveloped and I need to put more into it to make the time criteria that I just set up for it? So now that I've got these two really, really important decisions out of the way, I can start thinking about the overarching idea of the piece. So this is where I start drawing stuff down on paper, start thinking about what kind of emotions do I want? What's the big ending that I want for this piece? And what is that journey that I want to take the audience on? And for me in life, I believe that the journey is far more important than the result at the end. While yes, the ending is still important, I believe that that journey getting there is far more valuable, because if you think about it, if a journey is going to suck and it's not going to be enjoyable to do, then the ending might not be worth that journey. However, if the ending and the journey are both they both are very enjoyable, they're like, it's a great journey, then people are going to enjoy the ending far, far more. And that's my philosophy on that. So by the time I've decided this arch and I've decided, okay, this is going to be my big ending, and I've got my start, I can start kind of filling in the blanks for each movement about how each movement will interact with each other, how I'll transition from movement to movement. And by the time I've thought this all out, I have about 3 to 4 pages worth of notes and drawings. Sometimes with these notes, I'll have jotted down an idea or two for music, but nothing is concrete at this point. But the important part is that I figured out all 3 movements of the concerto from a very, very high level perspective. And I've done this without any idea of what my motives are going to be or who's going to be playing them. But the important part here is that I have my high level ideas down and I know where I'm going and I know how I'm going to get there. So that wraps it up for about this update. We're about 8.5 minutes into it. I'm trying to keep it under 10 minutes for each of these updates. In the next one, I want to go into more details about the first movement of the concerto for one ensemble, and we'll talk more about that then. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.